Who are the best Game Week 26 captains? I'm your Thinking Cap Benji, and last game week we had Mo Salah in first place. He delivered another massive haul, but in Game Week 26, it's not a double game week, which does open up an opportunity for those looking to go against. Let's get into it. Thinking Cap activated. My Game Week 25 captaincy rankings were perfect again. That's my third perfect ranking in a row, so we're in really hot form at the moment. Hopefully, we can keep this up. This week's shortlist is back to 4 candidates. Sonny has the best fixture on paper away to Ipswich, but not many people own him. In terms of the big 3, all of them have tougher fixtures this time around. Isak's the only one at home, but Newcastle are up against a very good Nottingham Forest. Palmer will be looking to capitalize on some of Aston Villa's defensive injuries, and Salah will face Man City at the Etihad on Sunday. He's actually got a superb record at the Etihad. Salah's never produced double digits in this fixture, but in his last 4 league starts away to Man City, Salah's returned in all 4. Palmer's historical record against Villa is tougher to interpret, as he's only started 1 time at Villa Park, but he did return a goal and an assist in the reverse fixture this season. Isak's only started once versus Forest at St. James's Park, where he scored, but Forest is one of Isak's favourite fixtures historically, as he's never blanked against them home or away from home. Sonny has a decent history against promoted sides away from home. He's holding 29% of starts, but that 33% blank rate is a little concerning. It does suggest inconsistency and unreliability when Son does play the promoted fodder. Ipswich is clearly the best fixture to target this weekend, but in terms of comparing the other 3 opponent defenses, I do think it's City and Villa who look more appealing for captaincy. Forest have been an excellent defense this season. They're averaging 1.2 goals conceded. That's lower than both City and Villa. Forest, they don't concede many big chances, nor do they make many defensive errors, and when we look at chances conceded, their most vulnerable defensive zone is Nico Williams' side, which is the left flank, so Isak doesn't really get the green tick matchups wise either. I think Isak and that Newcastle team can do well on the weekend, but with both Botman and Joe Linton out, those are 2 players who add real physicality to Eddie Howe's 11. Without them, I'm less confident in targeting this game. Villa and City's defensive data are on a similar wavelength, but I would consider City just slightly more targetable, and that's because they've just played 90-95 minutes in Spain midweek in the Champions League against Madrid. They had John Stones went off injured. They do have a few more injuries on top of that, including perhaps Erling Haaland, and they've got way more travel fatigue than an Aston Villa, who are playing their 3rd consecutive home fixture. Although Unai Emery does have a few significant defensive injuries of their own, I still think City are the 2nd best captaincy fixture on this week's shortlist. In terms of game day performance, it's Mo Salah who dominates once again. He's produced double-digit hauls in all 5 of his last 5 away starts on Sunday, and he's boasting the best statistical numbers in all 5 of my categories. The 2nd best game day performer is probably Isak. He's returned in 3 of his last 5 Sunday home starts. That's pretty decent. He's got the 2nd best points form, and his return rate and blank rate is close to Cole Palmer's, who does have a pretty decent historical record in Saturday away matches. His 0.8 return rate ranks 2nd best behind Salah, and he's offering the 2nd best double-digit haul rate at 27%. That's levels above both Son and Isak. So Palmer's got some decent potential this weekend. Moving on to game time performance, and Salah absolutely crushes the field once again. Only one category he isn't better than all of the rest, and that's Isak in the return rate. Isak's got a slightly better return rate, but he's only played 3 games, and that's why Palmer and Isak don't qualify for full comparison, because they haven't started more than 5 times at their upcoming kickoff. But out of the 3 that Isak has started, he does show quite a lot of promise. He's returned in all 3 of his home starts at 2 o'clock. So the early signs are that this is a preferred game time for Alexander, and he's someone I am considering. Son scored a hat-trick in his last 3 p.m. away start, but apart from that, his points history doesn't really indicate consistency at all. His blank rate is in the 60s, and that's just unacceptable from a midfielder in the current power curve. His double-digit haul rate suggests he is also, again, inconsistent, unreliable, which does make it very hard to recommend. Both Palmer and Isak have had 8 days rest ahead of their upcoming fixture. Son has had 6, which is also pretty decent, and although Salah's dominated most of the comparisons throughout the video, he does dip slightly when we look at recovery time. Mo will only get 4 days rest before the City game. He has also been subject to travel fatigue after playing 90 away to Villa this Wednesday. Then he's traveling to City again, and then he's got another fixture next week. But I don't expect Slot to rest him or shave his minutes against Man City because this is a massive game for Liverpool. If anything, I'd expect Mo to get less minutes in the Newcastle game next Wednesday rather than this away game against Man City because of the importance, and also the other game is at home, the Newcastle game, so he has more options and there's less, I guess, impotence, there's the home crowd, so I think that's where Salah would get a little bit of shaved minutes rather than Man City. Palmer and Son should play the full 90 with their schedules being pretty chill next week and coming into this week. Isak's the one that I'm expecting to play a little bit less minutes, and that's because they've got a pretty tight turnaround heading into Liverpool away on the Wednesday. Eddie Howe has been managing Isak's minutes really carefully and really well, honestly, this season, and the fact that we're only a few weeks away from the Carabao Cup final makes me unsure if he'll play the full game against Forest, and that does slightly regress his captaincy potential. Palmer's also got a tight turnaround, but his midweek fixture is Southampton at home, so I don't see Maresca shaving any minutes off Palmer in 26. Rather, if he does get shaved minutes across this patch, it's going to be in 27. Although Coley is top of Rest and expected minutes, I struggle to place him any higher than second on my Gameweek 26 rankings. Chelsea have a few significant injuries, the likes of Madueke, Lavia, Nico Jackson not available for selection, and it does make me less trusting of a weaker Chelsea side overall. This impacts the trust I also have in Palmer as captain because Chelsea are just more unreliable, and for me, I can't put him higher than second place. I still think it's a decent fixture for him. Disasi is ineligible to play because he's just came from Chelsea, and if Ezri Konsa isn't fit in time, I do think that Villa backline is there for the taking. There could be a few goals there for Palmer, and that's why he's in second. I mean, second's not bad. It's just his profile as a whole just has a few red flags in terms of Chelsea's injuries and really their form coming into this game. My Game Week 26 wildcard captain is Heung-min Son. Unfortunately, Sonny didn't really stand out in any of the comparisons this week, but I still think he's got the best fixture on paper. Spurs are on the rise, 2 wins in 2. They haven't done that since the start of the season. They had a full week's rest, and if you do own him, I'd strongly be considering it with Son projected to play 90 minutes, and off the back of a 6-day rest gap, it's looking decent. It's a decent high-risk, high-reward captain, but unfortunately, his game day, game time data sets are just too inconsistent for him to be snatching a top 3 place this week. My Game Week 26 best captain is Mo Salah, once again away to Man City, which does put Isak in third. Not only did Salah dominate both game time and game day comparisons, he's also got an excellent historical record at the Etihad. He loves big games, and he's in red hot form. The only real big red flag in Salah's profile is the travel fatigue and the lack of rest time. Because all of the other 3 are fully rested, they won't be subject to much travel, but Salah and this Liverpool outfit, although they have travelled, they didn't look too leggy against Villa. And you've also got to factor in that Man City's travel fatigue, they do have travel fatigue, and they've got a few defensive injuries, and I'm weighing that quite high this week. I think it makes them much more targetable as a fixture because they've just played an intense midweek Champions League tie in Spain against Madrid. They lost John Stones after 8 minutes. They conceded quite a few chances in that one as well. So I will be captaining Salah for the 3rd consecutive week. Isak's a decent option as well, well rested and the only home fixture on the menu this week, but I've got 2 main concerns with his profile. Number 1 is that the Liverpool game next week is only 3 days away from the Forest game, so Isak's minutes this week are more unpredictable and uncertain. Not to mention the second reason, which is Newcastle have 2 considerable injuries in the form of Joe Linton and Botman. Forest are a really physical team, and without those 2 being available, I'm less convinced that Forest are the fixture to target for captaincy. In terms of EO, I actually do think Isak will be quite high, just because one of the biggest influences every week on EO is Let's Talk FPL, aka Andy, and I saw his team selection. He's currently on Isak captain, so if Andy does stick with that, I'm expecting Isak's EO to be in and around the 120s. And look, he's a good option, but there's just a few red flags in his profile, which is why he gets 3rd place. For those of you asking about Brian and Mbumo captaincy, my analysis, my captaincy model only focuses on premium attackers in FPL, but I do like the fixture in Leicester away. Unfortunately, it is a late night kickoff on the Friday when this video is coming out, and Mbumo's away from home. Most of Brian's big holes this season, apart from Southampton, have come at the G-Tech, and because Leicester, it's a very big game for Leicester. They've got all of their starting 11 fit, apart from James Justin, and critically, Ndidi is fit, so I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park, But if you've got a good gut feeling with Mbumo, then feel free to hand him the armband. For me, I still think Salah has explosive potential against a very tired City. He's never hauled against them in the past, and I'm sure he'll be looking to do so on Sunday. If you've enjoyed this one, then drop a like on the video. If you're new around here, then consider sticking around by hitting subscribe, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Peace.